Yes, Anna and everybody, good morning and welcome to this exciting third day. I must say that it's one of the most riveting conferences I've ever been part of and I've ever attended. And I feel that the care and appropriateness with which the papers have also been put into these individual sessions is truly satisfying. And so I cannot wait to hear the papers in my session 8. And with that, I will introduce our first presenter, Dr. Barbara Renzi. She works currently in Berlin at the Berlin School of Business and Innovation. She holds 2 PhDs, one from the Queen's University in Belfast and one from Roma Tre. She works such exciting work. I won't keep you very long. It's on psychology, feminism, and environmental concerns. She is a psychologist and philosopher. And today, I believe she will talk about feminist resistance. And yes, Barbara, I'm excited.
Thank you so much. I'm excited too. I'm going to share my presentation that it's a bit too long because it's a paper, but I'm going to skip some part, okay? So I'm sharing the screen and so this is the title of the presentation. I'm going to speak about the Cavarero framework, but I will try to modify it and maybe enhance it, thinking about phenomenological intergenerational perspectives applied to maternity. So this paper is the result not just of my research, but of my giving birth and trying to understand what was going on with me more than 16 years ago. So a long time. It's a long time paper. So the first point that I want to make is that we have to speak about relational vulnerability. So, we are just not here alone. So we're going to speak about logically vulnerability and especially the concept that, we are not isolated, autonomous individuals. We are here, we are what we are because we are connected with the other. And why we're focusing on maternal identity? Because, yeah, it's maybe combine physical and emotional, ethical dimension of human connection, and it might be vulnerability in action, especially in particular situations. So why Adriana Cavarero, who is an Italian philosopher feminist? Because I think that she underlined the concept of vulnerability. She especially underlined the concept of interconnectedness from a philosophical perspective, which I think is very important. But I think we can go from a multi-dimensional understanding of relational identity. Let's see if I can move. Yes. So the philosophy of vulnerability. Okay. So we are formed, and this is not just philosophy, a feminist philosophy. We have all tradition in psychology, so we are very important. We are formed through the exposure to the others. Okay. So we are not shaped in isolation, but we are through the interaction relationship with others. And I think the notion of I, if you think about psychoanalysis, they say it's quite new thing. So vulnerability is intrinsic to subjectivity, and it's not a weakness. Although we think that the word vulnerability bring inside itself weakness, is not like that. It's who we are, okay, and it's openness. Like maternity is openness. Individual is not autonomous, although Western philosophy, glorify the self-sufficiency. We are much more than that. We are interdependent and connected, and not just among human beings, but we always say the nature and us. No, we are all together, and we forget that. So there is an ethical and political dimension inside it. The vulnerability has a significant moral and civic implication. It demands systems and structures that prioritize care and interrelations. And so maternal body is an ethical site of care because mother embodies a form of non-violent generative vulnerability. Her body demonstrates the ethical power giving sustaining life. So we contrast that with the Cavarero concept of horrorism, violence attack on vulnerability. Horrorism exposes and exploits the very condition that make us human. It weaponizes vulnerability, especially of those least able to defend themselves in particular situations. Motherhood as a paradigm of non-violent rationality. Maternity reflects vulnerability not as a lack, but as an ethical resource. It shows how we deep relational bonds can ground moral and social life. Okay, so I will not sorry. So horrorism, I'm not going to speak about horrorism because if you want to, we come back here because I'm pretty sure that you know these questions. I'll just skip them, but if you want, we can go back later on if you have questions. So inclination, according to Cavarero, as a metaphor for ethical openness, it suggests this posture of leaning towards. So human body is inclined towards the other, okay? And maternity has lived inclination. Motherhood enacts the ethical orientation Cavarero describes. The mother is literally turned towards the other in care. So, and we know that, other philosophers have spoken about it. And, we know that motherhood both empowers and alienates. I'm not going to deny that. I just wanted to underline something that we forget about motherhood sometimes. And we know also that, women lived between freedom and they imposed biological roles. So this is okay, just there. And we know about Merleau-Ponty as well. The fact that the pregnancy exemplified the body, according to me, the body relational openness and fluidity. And we know everything that, as Marion Young said, that, pregnancy is a site of dual subjectivity and contested political meaning. So I'm not going to deny that. And actually, I think we can all put together in order to see Cavarero point of view in a more, in a different way. Okay, not better, but different. Okay. So, and I'm not going to deny the tension between freedom, biological destiny. Sometimes I'm not going to deny pregnancy as a national possibility for sure. And logically, it's not the place to discuss here motherhood imposed versus freely chosen. Okay, so but it's important that we don't forget the embodiment as an openness and the self and other in pregnancy together. The fetus is simultaneously part and separate from the mother, and this blurs the boundaries and creates an intersubjectivity bodily state. Identities share shape through bodily coexistence. The mother becomes a locus for simultaneous subjectivities. Pregnancy is a two-in-one subjectivity, split embodiment, ethical openness in many ways, and logically we have to do a critique of medicalization and objectification, okay? Reclaiming our maternal agency and experience. So I'm going to split that because sorry, I'm going to go. We can go there, but just what I wanted to. If you want, we can go back on the slides for possible question. I've done more for this reason. But, pregnancy and care ethics. So traditional ethics like Kant of utilitarianism often ignore the embodied dependent relational life. But pregnancy demands a non-abstract ethic of care, attention, nourishment, and waiting. A rethinking of power, not dominance, but mutual dependence and vulnerability. And I like that personally. So pregnancy is not just a biological state, it's more for me. It's a philosophical and ethical events that reveal how the body is not whole and closed, the self is not solitary, ethics begins in relation, not rules. So there are lots of temporary waiting anticipation and becoming. Maternity is experienced through future-oriented time, pregnancy reshaped time, indifferent rhythm, anticipation, transformation. And care emerges from live bodily encounters with dependent other. The care is not optional, but is intrinsic to maternal experience. Maternal subjectivity can be seen as transformative. Motherhood redefines selfhood through vulnerability and connection. It alters the identity by fostering ongoing openness to others. Um, um, so I would like to speak about intergenerational perspective because apart from the body, we are also open to the past. We are not just who we are now. We are our mother, the mother of our mothers, and this is pretty much clear in psychoanalysis. So there is identity to genealogy and memory. Identity shaped through lines of maternal descendant. This relational history inform how one understands the role as a mother. Not just that, also the roles of the society, the people who are there, the nurses that you meet. Storytelling transmission is very much important because cultural memory and identity pass through maternal narratives. Stories offer emotional framework, also inherited values, and just not just the word, but also the word of not said. Okay, so imagine also the relationship. Yeah, you know, your first child die. Some people still die after birth, during birth, and the first child comes after that. There are lots of psychoanalytical papers that is sometimes if the trauma is not totally overcome, it's a substitute child. So the relationship is complicated, not just from what happened through genealogy and memory, but what happened in our life, you know, in our relationship with what is not, but with what we thought it was going to be. So we don't have to forget the ethical and political relevance of the lineage of our mother and mothers, because this challenge individualistic model of self with generational continuity, suggesting that ethic is rooted in the care rather than in the dependence. And, you know, if we just give a look at Yulia Kristeva, early maternal bonds shape symbolic identity. The core reflects the affective roots of communication and meeting. Intergenerational melancholic and silence is there. Trauma and identity are often passed in a spoken way. Emotional inheritance occurs outside of direct language. Maternal identity is shaped by inherited codes, which means language and emotion are passed down unconsciously. Cultural scripts influence maternal roles without explicit awareness. So logically, there is the idea of post-memory inherited trauma there, and maternal genealogies, where maternal narrative structure personal and collective identities, and memories narrating and ethical responsible ways, in the sense that we, a new generation, carry weight of past trauma, so engaging post memory, and this is started with the relationship. I'm just going to skip those, and because I'm going to go to the political implication, and because I've done slides for possible questions. Okay, so the political implications are there. So we should challenge autonomy-centered politics. Policy must consist care and dependency. It should be politics of care. Care should be the most important word. Maternity exposes the limits of liberal individualism. Supporting caregiving roles is extremely important. Valuing unpaid maternal labor, societal contribution, recognizing care work as essential to social sustainability. Social justice is through care-based models. So we should redesign a system to support vulnerable population. Policy must reflect the rational nature of human life. I mean, life is relational, not human life. Life is relational. So Here, I show from current slide. So, so vulnerability is not just a risk, it's creative and ethical. Without vulnerability, we don't have creativity. Maternity reveals how vulnerability produces new forms of lives and meanings in many ways. Identity emerges through body, story, and memory. This dimension expand the philosophical model that Cavarero gave us. Selfhood is formed through dynamic relationship, and it's psychologists, not just philosophy. So maternity, what does it exemplify? It simplify identity as an unfolding process. I don't know how long I have, and I want to skip this because I already spoke about ethical as refraining. Sorry, I'm just going here. Slideshow from current slide. So we have spoken about the importance of relational identity, the vulnerability and exposure. Okay, so we are what we are. We forget that we are dependent. Ethics of care openness. So motherhood is a relational identity, already spoken, and the philosophical implication demonstrate what they show that identity is never purely individual. So we've seen that it's formed in and through relationship. So ethics should be. So the maternal body is open, exposed, vulnerable to others' needs. The ethical implication here that the motherhood demands recognizing vulnerability as a strength and ethical responsibility rather than weakness. Maternal relationships require an ethics rooting in openness and care, not moral abstract rule. Ethics is not chosen, but raises naturally and in a necessary way out of bodily and relation exposure to another life. Motherhood simplifies the idea that ethical responsibility is not something added on top of relationship, but rather something emerging directly from them. So, so motherhood becomes a radical ethical position for broader social responsibility and care ethics in society. The social ethical dimension of motherhood as practice is not just mere biology, it's much more. So, and we have lots of example in life: motherhood through crisis, community mothering, motherhood has resistance, mothers of the Plaza de Mayo, women who mother children collectively, refugee mother protecting children. Why does expansion matter? Because motherhood reveals that the motherhood is not just a private act, but philosophical, ethical, even political one. It calls for a new ethical paradigm based on relationality, vulnerability, and care. Motherhood is the lived embodiment of relationship identical, ethical openness, and bodily vulnerability. Thus, it demands a societal and philosophical reorientation toward ethics as a relational care. So motherhood is an intergenerational embodiment. And because we carry embodied memory and inherited practice from previous generation. We practice care, nurturing, her handed down. We shape mothers and their children. And maternal ethics extend beyond immediate care to responsibility towards future. Motherhood demands ethical decisions that affect not only the present, but the sustainability of life and well-being for future generations. We know that intergenerational trauma and healing is passed on, but also the healing, the love is passed on, not just the trauma, and we forget about that. International motherhood shows relational identity extending across time, connecting past, present, future, and ethical continuity of rupture. So mothers, also in the extended meaning, become critical actors. In either we can perpetuate cycle of trauma or initiate transformative relational care. So logically, we have family and community as co-mothering, social institutional relationships, are important for healthcare, education, social support, and employment. And we have what I call it is ecological, no, I call it is that ecological relationality. So a relationship in an ecological way. So motherhood points towards a relational interdependence, not only with humans, but also with the natural environment. We are natural environment. I say with, but we should find another word because we are nature, revealing human vulnerability to ecological system, sustainability, and environmental justice. So we need ethical framework. They are different for sure. So we can integrate intergenerational relational networks. So how? So this is a sort of a schema because I got lost while writing this. We have intergenerational, we have to add these ideas to Cavarero. So temporal relationality, vulnerability, trauma healing together, and we have practical ethical outcomes. We can have broader network because logically we need community, society, and ecology. Mother needs community. They cannot do on their own, and we have to have supportive system, environmental care. And there are maternal and digital movement, community mother as an immigrant network, and actually it's difficult, but sometimes they work. Sometimes environmental justice, maternal activism. That's what I say. There are different movements. I'm not going to speak them. So yes, we should expand the Cavarero philosophy of relational identity, ethical openness, embody vulnerability towards motherhood, intergenerational, and broader relation dimension. And we see clearly that motherhood is relational. I'm saying it demands an ethical framework, and logically phenomenology help us because we emphasize on lived experience. So we just have to say the self, not just how it is narrated, but the sense through the body, perception, emotion in the world. We should work on I don't see the slide, sorry. We should work on embodied intersubjectivity. The self is not just told, but co-emerge, and we don't have to forget that. And it's very difficult to become mothers. It's not just a biological act. And yes, so this corporal intersubjectivity shown how identity is shaped by affective encounter, gesture, spatiality, and presence. And I'm telling you, it's very difficult to give birth in a different country that is not yours with a different language. It's not a joke. And we have temporality and becoming. Yes, it's there, It's not just lived through time with anticipation, memory, and presence. Temporality is not lived, rather it's lived not just in a chronological way. We have to explore them constantly, how we become through past, present, future horizon. And yes, so Cavarello gives centrality to the voice, but it's not just a voice. It's more that, the act of the voice oneself is just a narrative act, but it's an experiential, embodied, affective one. That's what I say, So we should really expand that, allow us to attend not only the narrative who, but the felt, embodied, lived how. And there are two different things. So we have written sensation and affective dimension through which the identity is constituted in lived encountered. So, and here it's just a sort of, repeating as a conclusion, so the felt textual motherhood are extremely important as well. And the relationality and intersubjectivity, because it's really a radical intersubjective entanglement, body intertwined. Yes, so I'm pretty sure that you agree with that. And yeah, that's it. I think I just say it's analyze how mother lives in a dual temporality, her own narrative and the child unfolding life interwoven, shaping herself, and how mother voice, attunement, participate, shape both her own and the child emerging identity. So phenomenological lens are extremely important. I'm not going to read that because it's sort of a repetition, and the conclusion, I think I was strong on the importance of political change, that ethics should start from relationship, and so maternal identity reveals depth of relational vulnerability. Maternity provides tangible evidence of our shared human condition. We always forget about that. It's always the I. And, this approach illuminates the full spectrum of relational life, phenomenology, international theory that we can adopt, the Cavarero. And we need a more human relational understanding of ethics and our identity. So we have to reframe vulnerability as a strength, because it's not openness, so it's creativity. And, a call for ethics that prioritize care, mutuality, and connection, and not rules. These are the rules. And I stopped the thing, and I hope you really enjoyed.
Thank you so much, Barbara. It was brilliant. I think I agree with everything you said. It was lovely.